Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Dark and Darker video. Today we are talking about trading in Dark and Darker and what can be done to solve it, and what SDF has already said on the issue. So first off, people have been asking for an auction house for a long time. The other thing people have been asking for is for trade to be completely removed from the game. Now, I am not in camp of removing trade because really the reason why I like this game is gold number go up. And I think a lot of other players like that too, but I think a lot of other players like playing this game because they like the mechanics, they do like the looting, but they don't like how trading it takes so long, and there's a lot of other problems with it, right? Now, with that said, some people seem to think, okay, let's remove trade, that'll solve the problem, and then other players seem to think auction house, that'll solve the problem. So here's the difference between those two. If you don't know what an auction house is, basically an auction house is like eBay. What we have right now, basically think of it as like a public stock trading floor, and everyone has to run in there and they raise up their stock and they yell, I have purple dark armor. Please buy my purple dark armor for 200 gold. And then someone else comes up screaming at them and they go, I will buy your purple dark armor for 150 gold. And then they shout at each other back and forth. Whereas an auction house is more like creating an eBay listing. And the people who think, okay, let's remove trade, that'll solve the problems. Basically, the problem that they want solved is they can get stomped by this gear that can be acquired through trade. And when you trade, you can get gear sets that are really, really good and really min-maxed. And they don't like trading. They don't like spending the time in it, even if they might have the gold, or maybe they don't have the gold. And so they want everyone to be knocked down a level to the level they're at and have to go find that gear in-game. Now, I do not like the idea of removing trading because it means, okay, if you ever want to kit something, especially on another character, then you're going to have to go ahead, find that in the dungeon. And what that actually ends up causing, we've seen this in Escape from Tarkov, is the top 1% of players get even more kitted than they were before because they can kill other players for their kits. And they oftentimes already do kill other players for their kits. And the people who are below them have no chance to get those kits in the first place. Now, you could also make the argument of, okay, if that bottom 99% doesn't have those kits in the first place, then most of these players who are casuals wouldn't experience that problem because those top 1% of players would go ahead into high roller. You're going to have a trickle-down effect problem then, where the top 10% of players who want to play high roller get bullied out of high roller, and then no one plays high roller, and eventually your top 1% would come down to your regular lobbies, and then you have all your really good players playing in regular lobbies with your super upper echelon players with super good gear, with it being completely unachievable for more casual players. Like, impossible for them to build a kit that is that good. But then we have the other solution, an auction house. An auction house, okay, basically we're making it an eBay listing instead, so trade becomes much faster. And SDF has talked about this in the past and said how they didn't want to add an auction house, but actually recently, someone has been asking for an auction house, and they said they are seriously considering this. They also said they don't want to implement a gear cap and these other things, but they have tried those in the past, so they're willing to try these new things, so that is good. I am a big proponent for an auction house because I played this little game you might know of called RuneScape. Now, in RuneScape, they have this thing called the Grand Exchange, which is basically an auction house. And you can go there and you can dump in all of your, maybe it's your animal bones or whatever. And someone else can put in a buy order and get it instantaneously. So you spend about 2 seconds trading. And the trading system that Dark and Darker is currently based upon is based off of RuneScape before they added the Grand Exchange. Basically, what everyone would do is they would come to this one town square, this Varrock Bank, and everyone would shout, XYZ, trading XYZ item, this much gold. And what that causes is market inefficiencies. That makes flipping items earn tons of money and all of these other problems. And the biggest market inefficiency is how long it takes to sell items. Once again, it's basically like a stock trading floor where everyone's yelling, I am selling dark armor for 200 gold, and you have to yell louder than everyone else. And the biggest reason why I would push auction house based off of this is because we actually have numbers based off of their game Old School RuneScape that show after they re-added the Grand Exchange, this is because this is the old school version of this. RuneScape has 2 games, one being the newer one being old school. The old school version of the game only got its huge player increase after they added the Grand Exchange. So everyone complaining about trade right now, they're not lying, saying they don't want to spend all day trading. If you've only got 2 hours a day to play, you don't want to spend 1 hour of that on trading. But if you have 15 hours a day to play, and you spend 1 hour of that on trading, it becomes, who really cares, right? And this causes a problem where we are at currently, where the top end of players have all of the best items. Now, there's a lot of players who will go ahead and disfranchise auction houses and go, this is just going to make gear disparity worse because all the best players can rekit super quick, and they can also buy the best items in 2 seconds. Now, the argument I have against that is, you can also buy the best items in 2 seconds. You can buy the best items immediately then. You have the access to the same options as them, which people do not understand right now. The super kitted players already have access to an auction house. It already exists. It is called the Lord Collector's Discord. Basically, what you do there is you make a post, and someone messages you on Discord, and they go, I will pay XYZ amount for this item. And the super high tier players, what they do is they pay someone 10% of what their items are worth to go ahead and trade them for them, so they don't have to spend any time in the trade chat at all. This is why your top streamers like Repose, Jay Griffia, your Ken Kenobis can go ahead and they can just pay a fence to go ahead and do their trading for them, and they run top tier kits 24/7, 365. They already have access to a third-party auction house, and we could just go ahead and give this ability to everyone, because otherwise it will get formed into an underground market, like it already has, and benefit the people who play the game the most. Basically, everyone else is being screwed over because they don't have access to an auction house right now, and your top 1% of players do. The only real reason why the devs want to keep the current iteration of trade is because they have some nostalgia for the old version of RuneScape that was before the Grand Exchange. And the same problem happened with old school RuneScape as well, where a whole bunch of players were going, I'm going to quit if they add the Grand Exchange. I'm going to quit if they add the Grand Exchange. You know who ended up quitting? Basically no one. You know who ended up joining? 5 times as many players as they had before that. When everyone who is posting about this is going, the problem is trade, the problem is trade, and they're offering various solutions, keep in mind, not all of those solutions are equally valuable, but players are very good at identifying when a game has a problem. They're very good at identifying when something makes them feel bad from the game they're playing, when it is supposed to be something fun for them to play about. Players, however, are very bad at designing solutions, but they're very good at pointing out problems. So when a problem as prolific as this gets pointed out, the developers should put some time in to fix it. That doesn't necessarily mean they should listen to someone going, remove trade, which, by the way, they've already tried with those under level 15 lobbies. There's no trading involved there, and it just didn't solve the problem itself. The problem is, first off, there's a lot of gear disparity in this game, and probably a little bit too much in my opinion. And second off, not everyone has time to spend trading for these top tier items. How often do you see a top tier item even show up in the chat? If I'm looking for a best in slot item, and I'm talking an actually best in slot item, not an item with just +1 weapon damage as a roll. If I am sitting in chat waiting for that, it can take over an hour just to find one item that is actually best in slot. So what you end up doing, if you want to buy a best in slot kit, is you go ahead, you farm that gold with whatever way you farm gold, and then you go into Lord Collector's Discord, and you trade people there for it. They have got their listings put up, and you can search for any item your heart possibly desires and find it immediately if you would like to, and you have the gold for it. Oftentimes, it will cost you tens of thousands of gold, but it is an option that is already available to those top 1% of players. Basically, all Ironmace is doing by not implementing this system is making it worse for your average Timmy and making it harder to get into the game. Now, let's talk about a couple other potential problems with the current system and with an auction house. One other potential proposed problem is that botting would get significantly worse. If an item is underpriced, it will be sniped very quickly by bots and then resold at a much higher value. This is true. This is absolutely true. This will happen. And because all of the trades will go through this auction house, it should be easier for the bots to do. Now, what I can tell you is happening already is there's already a massive botting problem. These bots are finding items that are being sold for less than they're worth, and they're trading these players in a 100th of a second. So if you trade an item, if you list an item, and you get traded within 100th of a second, that is not a player, that is a bot, and that means you have underlisted that item and that item is worth more. Which is actually kind of a nice system to use right now to know you need to repost it at a higher price, a much higher price. But basically that bot will buy it at a lower price, sell it at a higher price. You might see players just spamming the chat going, selling XYZ item for 1 key, and you leave, you go play 15 games and come back and they're still selling the same item. That is a bot, that is not a player. Those are not real people. That is a script. That is a line of code running somewhere. That is a robot. And those people aren't real. And if you want to test this theory, go ahead and try and sell candy corns in the trade chat for much less than they're worth. You'll get a good 10 trades way faster than any human could trade you. And those are all bots. That is one of the main ones that they try and trade very quickly because it's easy to price. And they market manipulate with this. So the current trade channels are also able to be manipulated and able to be cheated to farm all sorts of gold. It's just a little bit harder under the current system because of all of the things that slow down the system currently for everyone else as well. So the thought behind these people is, let's go ahead and slow down everyone so we can slow down these bots. But the thing is, with an auction house, sure, those bots could go ahead and snipe those things, but if someone sets it up for an auction in the first place, they could set up a system where you go ahead and you type in a maximum bid you're willing to pay for that item, and it automatically snipes it for you within the game when that auction ends. That could be done within the game so that other people get less of an advantage with these outside bots. There would, of course, be something doing that because I would imagine there would still be buy it now listings, which could easily be cheated, but no more easily than our current system, other than all of the inefficiencies that are getting removed for everyone else as well. And if you think making the whole game clunky just to make it one line of code harder for these bots is something that these developers should do, I don't even know what to say to you. Do you have brain damage? Like, what's wrong with you? Now, the other option of why someone might like the current trade chats is because they like flipping. If you like the trading aspect of this game, an auction house would absolutely make that aspect worse because there would be less market inefficiencies. Basically, those players like role-playing as a merchant. That's basically what they like playing the game for. And they like flipping items, and it is going to create less market inefficiencies, so they will earn less gold trading. Those players, I could see why they would be angry at an auction house. That makes sense to me, but I am totally up for screwing over those players to make everyone else's gameplay experience better. I don't think there should be a trade minigame in the first place. Let's go the way the rest of these games have gone and make trade actually fast instead of slow. And then one more point I wanted to talk about on this video is a lot of the people pushing for no trade are also pushing, hey, this will get rid of real money trading. And no, it won't. Everyone seems to think Escape from Tarkov has an actually functioning flea market is what they call it, and that you can actually list whatever you want on there. They have a ton of trade restrictions on there. And what the cheaters do to get around that is they go ahead, they queue in with the person buying the items, and they drop it to them in-game. And then they are more incentivized to use cheats, so that way they can go ahead and kill everyone else in the lobby and get their client out safely. And this causes a huge problem for Escape from Tarkov because what it actually causes is more cheaters instead of less. Now, there has been a solution to this that does involve removing trade in another game. Once again, RuneScape. RuneScape had this thing where they called it removal of free trade. And coincidentally at this time, this was when RuneScape's player base hit the lowest. And that is because in order to do that, they had to remove PvP from the game. If you remove PvP from the game, you can completely solve that problem where you can real world trade to one another. However, it did have some benefits. Botting basically completely stopped. The only reason people would bot is for personal gain. So all the people who are coming in and cheating to real world trade money, those people would disappear. The only people who would cheat anymore is for their own personal gain. So it does solve that problem, but also we know it really hindered RuneScape's player amounts. And they tried some other options like, hey, maybe if you kill someone, it could roll some new items based off the value of their previous items, but it wouldn't be exactly what they had on. And hey, it kind of revived PvP a little bit, but it didn't bring PvP back to where it was before, and the game was still sitting on a super low player count. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't want that. If I kill someone who's a perfectly kitted Giga Chad, I want to be able to steal their kit and use it myself. So instead of going for removing trade, I would like an auction house, and so that everyone can be even here and not just the people in Lord Collector's Discord having access to an auction house. But let me know what you guys think the real solution is here. Comment it down below, and make certain to subscribe for more of these videos. See you guys